Hi everyone, Eva here. It's Sleep Tip Tuesday. So in honor of today, we're going to talk about the witching hour, which is that intense fussiness in the late afternoon and early hours of the evening that many young babies experience. Now, and we're going to specifically talk about what might be causing it and what you can do to help minimize it. Now, it's often thought that this fussiness is just colic, right? So it might be, but chances are it's not. See, colic is known to be this uncontrollable, intense crying, often for long periods of time, that usually takes place in the late afternoon to early hours of the evening. And it's known to not have any cause. We just can't figure out what's exactly causing the crying. About 20% of more of needier, high needs newborns and young babies tend to experience colic, but what about the other 80%? So for the vast majority of babies, it's not colic that's causing this fussiness. It's usually something else. So we're going to talk about the top 4 factors that might be causing this fussiness and what you can do about it. So the first thing that we'll talk about is overtiredness. If your young baby is not sleeping enough during the day, then very often that can be causing a huge bout of crying in the early hours of the evening. Now, for those of you who have just joined the group, you'll see that I'm going to use the term overtiredness all the time because it's one of our worst enemies when it comes to infant and toddler sleep. And this situation is no different. When a young baby is not sleeping enough during the day, a sleep deficit accrues. And as the day goes on and he continuously misses naps and is up for too long and doesn't sleep for long enough, by the early hours of the evening, he is so bloody exhausted that all he does is wail nonstop. So that's one potential cause. The second potential cause of your baby's fussiness in the evening is if he's overstimulated. Now, this is especially common for those of you who have a very busy house. For those of you who have older children or there's lots going on and lots happening in your house, your baby might not be participating in these activities specifically, but she's taking everything in. And then come the early hours of the evening, she might be experiencing sensory overload and doesn't know what to do with herself, so just wails nonstop. So that's the second potential cause of your baby's fussiness. The third cause might be that she's cluster feeding. So cluster feeding is what younger babies do in the early hours of the evening to tank themselves up for the night. So they eat far more frequently than they do in the earlier hours of the day. And again, the theory is that they're trying to fill up their tummies as much as possible with the goal of giving you their longest stretch of sleep for the night, which is going to vary from baby to baby depending on the baby and the age of the baby. But that's what the theory is. The fourth potential cause of this witching hour could be if your baby is gassy. So, needs to burp, is eating something that isn't necessarily agreeing, something in your breast milk or whatnot. So that could potentially be the fourth cause. Now, what do you do? So, you've figured out your baby's not napping enough or your baby might be gassy. So here are 4 very practical tips that you can apply that can hopefully minimize the witching hour. I mean, look, to a certain extent, some of this behavior is unavoidable because some of it is somewhat normal, but there is still a lot that you can do to make this witching hour more manageable for everyone. So the first thing I'll say is to make sure that you really focus on daytime sleep. Remember that getting your baby proper naps during the day is not optional, it's mandatory. And if your baby is not going to be getting enough daytime sleep, then come bedtime, he's going to be a wreck because he's so overtired. So do what you need to do to make sure that he sleeps well during the day. That's tip number 1. Tip number 2, when you're in the thick of that witching hour and your baby is crying nonstop, put him in a carrier. Baby wear. Baby wear the heck out of him. Baby wearing is fantastic for this specific stage because it gives you your hands free. It often calms the baby even a little bit by putting him onto your chest. So get yourself a good carrier or baby wrap that's comfortable for you and that can allow you to get through this stage and survive as best as you can. The third thing is to make sure that your baby is burped well after every feed. If the last thing that you want is for these air pockets to constantly accumulate throughout the day until your baby's got so much gas in him he has no idea what to do with himself. So make sure that he's burped really, really well after every feed. You might even have to burp him. If you have an especially gassy baby, you might have to burp him halfway through each feed. So, feed him on one side, burp him, feed him on the other side, burp him, or if he's bottle feeding, give him half the bottle or a third of the bottle and, burp him afterwards so that you don't have a baby that's in pain from all these air pockets. The last thing that I would say is so this is specifically for those of you who are nursing, pay close attention to your diet and try and experiment and see if cutting out certain foods from your diet help eliminate the gassiness. So, eliminating certain gassy foods like broccoli or cabbage, trying an elimination diet of dairy might potentially help. Speak to your doctor in more detail if you need some guidance on this. But, applying those 4 tips can really help in the long run manage this witching hour and get you through it as much as you can. I hope this was helpful. Have a wonderful day, everyone.